All right, so at least we made it back here.
On the others. Right.
Belinda just texted, so I think it's going to be a second before she gets back in.
Okay.
Allie was saying that Tuesday works for her for the next meeting, though. Matt, did you get that text about the Tuesday meeting?
I was looking at that. So were y'all saying 12 to 4, like one big meeting? Or
Just like that time frame.
Yeah,
okay.
That time frame.
That time frame? Okay, let's see here. I get here. I would say probably around 2 to 4 Arizona time. I should be home. Maybe a little bit after 2.
Okay.
So we can shoot for like 2:30, and if we have a long meeting, then that's the bulk of the work done there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. So.
Okay. And then I think based on Allie's text message, she says Tuesday works great for me. So
Tuesday it is.
Okay.
Guys, before we proceed, I realized I did not hit record on our first session, and I hit it at the very end.
I saw that.
So I am so sorry. So this is what I'll do. I did get a picture of all 4 of us, so I'll just send.
Okay.
I'll send Dr. Chinley a note and let her know that I forgot to press record. But I did. I have the picture of the beginning, and I just recorded like the last minute when I realized I didn't hit record. We're recording now, so I'll let her know.
Okay.
That it was my mistake for not pressing record on that, so we don't miss credit for that one.
No worries. No worries. I think
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we had some good stuff there. So I realized
Yeah.
like, right before.
She could also see the timer, I'm sure. So.
Yeah.
So we were actually in a meeting.
Yeah, and so she'll see it cut off. So, so yeah, I'll send her a message once we're done.
Oh, that's
Okay.
so funny.
No worries. No worries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think, Eden, you were making a point, right, before we cut off, or had it transitioned?
No, that was all just tying in real life
Experiences, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been in that kind of situation that you were discussing. It happens. I was a younger sergeant when I got promoted. And then it was like not very much longer after that, I had to take on the position of the next higher rank. So I'm a new sergeant, but I'm in charge of an entire squad. That did not blow over so well with some people, but
I'm sure.
I mean, it is what it is. And the reason why they did that was because of my experience, the things that I knew.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they had to deal with it for a little while.
Yeah.
But then eventually they caught on and realized, I wasn't just young and dumb. I knew what I was doing, and I knew how to lead. I proved myself to them as being a leader.
Right. Oh, that's good
Funny
stuff.
how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while before you get that group-wide acceptance.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. I think it's easier when you get promoted and you go into a different team or store or squad or something like that. I think the textbooks mentioned something about that, that they conducted a study where they swapped, it was on airplanes or something like that, and air something. But if the commander was swapped, it was easier for the commander rather than the specialist doing task performance when they swapped. So,
Yeah, see, for us, it's like complete opposite. We would much rather, instead of someone getting promoted and move somewhere else, like to a different unit or something, we would much rather them stay there with us and try to promote within our organization.
Yeah. Well, the military is a whole different ball game.
yeah.
You guys
It's it's got its differences, but really, if you think about the structure and the breakdown, it's kind of the same as about any other business. Different terminology, but the structure and breakdown is pretty similar.
Well, but the relationships that you guys build, you have to be able to really rely on each other and trust each other.
Right.
That part, the trust portion, can be difficult to build with an outside leader.
Yep.
Where you're coming from.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge organization.
All right. Anything else from that section, cohesion and trust area that anybody wants to talk about, or any questions, concerns, or comments?
Yeah,
I feel pretty good about it.
I think so.
Okay. Cool. All right. So the next chapter, chapter 8, it's managing team conflict. What chapter is that? Same for you, Eden?
Conflict teams, but same idea.
Okay. So I guess this was the part where I was saying that relationship conflict hurt the team more so than task conflict from our previous meeting, and how task conflict can be a positive opportunity because through the conflict resolution, team members, have a uniform front and everything.
Does your guys' book also list process conflict?
Yes. Yeah, it's how to approach and resolve disagreements among team members. Is that what you have there?
Well, mine, it's like a chart. So it has 3 lines, and under the definition for process conflict, it states centers on task strategy and delegation of duties and resources.
Yep, that's I think we have this same table chart thing. It's on 198. Or you guys have, I'm sorry, Kindle versions, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on page 198 of mine, it has the same thing.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, 198. Okay. I like the examples in that chart on, how to assess that potential conflict. Like, it's helpful.
Yeah.
I thought the leading across cultural boundaries was a good section. I know one of the classes I had last semester, there was an example, like a short video where there was a gentleman who was placed in a leadership role, but it was kind of an international leadership role. So all of his departments were scattered at different places around the world. And so they all came together to have a meeting. And at that meeting, all of the cultural differences kind of clashed. So there was one lady from, I forget what country she was from, but she actually did the scheduling of the actual meeting at a restaurant. And so by scheduling at a restaurant and her culture meant, it was going to be a bonding relationship for them at that time. But the gentleman was American, so he was planning to come there and talk business. And then there was another guy who was tasked with, I think he was supposed to make copies for everybody or something like that. and he wasn't able to complete that, but from his country, he was not supposed to give pushback to leadership. So all of these things continued throughout the meeting where nothing got done because there was a lot of cultural differences that this new guy didn't have. He didn't know how to deal with that, or hadn't reached out to see what these unique differences were. So it can definitely be challenging working with individuals from different cultures.
I saw that video too.
You saw that? Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was a good one.
It was a good one. Absolutely.
Like a YouTube video, like we had to write a discussion on it or something. I think I remember taking that class, but it was a while ago.
I think it was OGL 220.
220, yep.
Oh, excellent memory.
Let's see.
So I think.
Go ahead.
I was saying with companies and businesses being globalized like that, I think it's super important for leaders to know and learn about cultural norms and differences and be able to communicate and not take any offense or to certain things that other cultures do.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys read that Columbia Sports specific little excerpt that they did? We were talking about how once the father, I guess, who started Columbia Sportswear passed away, like the mother and son had a horrible relationship. And so once the father passed away, they were forced to do business, but it was like it was a horrible situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you have that?
Yeah.
They moved their offices to opposite sides or something crazy like that, right?
Yeah. And it was, I think towards the end, they figured out a way to work together, but that was kind of part of one of the resolutions, is that they were not in close proximity because I think the son wanted to go global, whereas the mother wanted to keep all of the production in the States, I think it was. I think that was one of the main conflicts.
Yeah.
That they had to resolve.
The mother and son team carved out separate areas of authority and avoided frequent contact.
Yeah.
Do you guys, in that, close to that article or that little case study expert, there's conflict modes. It should be on page 210, but it says that graph reminds me of the leadership grid that has concern for people and concern for production. I don't know if you guys taken, I want to say, is it 200? I don't know, but it just reminded me of that grid, that middle of the road management would be compromised in terms of conflict resolution or modes.
Yeah. What does your guys's look like?
Oh. That?
Okay, yeah, I have the same one.
Okay, perfect, yeah. So that's what, if you guys taken other organizational leadership classes, if you guys remember the managerial grid or the leadership grid, that, the concern for people and then the concern for productivity, this one's just more like self-preservation and empathy for other people. So it kind of, I think, correlates to that grid somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. Another case study that I thought was interesting was a case about the Chilean miners who were trapped, and what was that, 69 days or 72 days, however long that was, and they created their own structure, their own leadership structure in order to survive. don't know if you guys saw that case study.
Is that in where? I don't remember seeing that. Where's
Let's see.
chapter 8 still?
It was in chapter 8.
I don't have that.
Later. I have to find it again.
Yeah, no, that one's not in this edition of the book.
Let's see if I can find it.
I don't.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's in chapter 8. I just found it. I was like, post it.
Yeah.
It's on
Page
page
214.
214.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So maybe not in the case study. Let me see. Yeah, it was just interesting how they under that being under duress, they decided that we need to form a formal structure in order to survive. So I think that was pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that they said every decision was. Sorry,
Yeah.
I heard super staticky on the computer. My bad.
Yeah, no worries.
I think this chapter I kind of just glazed through because of the topic of the last course I took. It was based on conflict, and that one kind of just was more in depth about everything. And so this one I was just kind of I don't remember much from this.
All right, we have anything else from chapter 8? Are we ready to move on?
I'm ready.
Oh, I don't know. I think the biggest takeaway of conflict is to kind of depersonalize it, not take it personally. I know it's easier said than done, but I think that's the biggest thing for conflict first is to like not take it personally and then to get past it with resolving it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where regulating those emotions really comes into play.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that conflict course I took, it talked about like if you look at the schedule ahead of time before getting into work and you see, oh, there's this individual that I don't get along with, and you have that mindset already that this person's difficult to work with and they always push back and they disagree with me, of course you're not going to get along with them because you have that idea of them. But if you look towards the individual situations instead and say, well, this is just a difficult situation, we have different viewpoints on it, it's easier to take yourself out of the equation and come to that compromise or come to a solution that works for the both of you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely good points.
All right. Chapter 12? Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go to it.
Virtual teams, describing us.
Yep. Yeah, this is. We're living it right now.
Right?
Yes.
Let's see. I think one of the first things that I came across, and I hope I perceived that correctly, We're just talking about how virtual teams were more productive at brainstorming than face-to-face teams.
I can kind of see that, just because I think there's almost a protective barrier. Like you're not there. And so if you do say you do have a different opinion or a different perspective than somebody else, I think there's almost that security that there won't be any or as much pushback like during when you voice that opinion or perspective.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it. Think about how you act when other people are around you. And then think about how you act when it's just you, by yourself. Like you're watching TV, something happens, you have an emotion about it, you let it out towards that TV, no big deal. But when people are there, you tend to hold things back a little more.
Yeah.
When we're looking at people on the screen, you kind of have that little bit of a feeling there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think how they were talking about when you're emailing, or especially you just keep it on simple form as far as texting, how messages can get misconstrued. The real meaning of a person is hard to perceive when you can't see them physically.
Right.
So I know, especially if if I'm talking business over text, I really try to think out what I'm saying to make sure it doesn't come off, as funky or whatever it may be, even in personal life, because, that one perception can change the whole mood of a relationship, whether that be business or personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think all text messages should be read monotone with a monotone voice.
Yeah. That's what you hope. Yeah.
Our meeting is at Tuesday. No.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's so hard to convey emotions through emails, and sometimes when I get texts from if they're my sister or my mom, I'm like, why? And I'm just like, no, it's okay. They probably don't mean it like that. Calm down, I'm fine.
Yep.
I guess that's where emojis come into play, so you can represent as best you can through the little emoji of what you're talking about.
I was a little lost at first. My chapter 12 is inter-team relations, and I was like, there's no virtual anything in there, so I had to go to the.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it's on virtual.
Wow.
Well, I have that in the next chapter. I had to go to the table of contents and figure out. But yeah, I see it now.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So in this chapter, what stood out to me was trust and rapport. It says that when you're face to face, it's trust and rapport builds quickly. But in a virtual setting, the team is kind of hesitant. What do you guys think that could be part that makes it more difficult to build trust and rapport in a virtual setting versus one-on-one or face-to-face?
I definitely think of. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, think of this. We have these boxes, and we can only see our body language from here up.
Yeah.
In person, you can read someone from head to toe, and you can see if they're involved or it's just easier to see where their mindset is when you're face to face.
Yeah. No, I agree. I also think as the chapter mentioned, just you don't get to have those personal conversations. We may all be in a meeting, but if we were in a face-to-face meeting, two of us may walk out and have a conversation, and then you really start to build rapport because you get to learn more about that person. So I thought they may have mentioned a specific company that does the virtual water cooler talk, where they kind of had a thread where you can jump in that thread and just have personal conversations about different news topics or whatever's going on personally. I mean, that's virtually. I mean, I think that's as best as you can get, but it's that personal contact. Because I know even in face-to-face business meetings, the meeting starts off with personal talk. You know, whoever's sitting next to each other, or they try to catch up, you know, between meetings. So you get to build this rapport, as opposed to now, you know, once this meeting ends, we won't really have any more contact until Tuesday, other than a couple of text messages between here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. So speaking on that, then, do you guys want to include something like a icebreaker before every meeting in the charter to get to know one another, to build more cohesion with the group, or do you think I'm just crazy because that happens?
No, I think that would be good. Like
Like
before
maybe
we start
like
recording. Sorry, my laptop's being weird.
It's okay. Earthquake. I don't know. Maybe like take, I don't know, 3 minutes or 5 minutes before we actually work to just be like, hey, what's going on? Or I don't know.
Or play a game.
Yeah. I don't know. Just some thoughts out there, because if they're, I don't know.
Yeah. No, we'll figure something out. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Where would that fall under the charter?
Well,
and then I feel like definitely that would fall under the responsibilities of the host.
yeah, I think that's the best place, because it's not really necessarily a policy. It's just something fun to start off our meeting, so it's not just like work.
Yeah. And then the host can decide, like, well, we're going to say like fun facts about ourselves, or today we're going to talk about this, or
yeah. Oh, I'm down with that. And then if anybody disagrees, paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
That should be our team name.
Paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah, everything. That was brilliant, Eden, that you said that, because I'm just stuck on that for Team 9 now.
I see. That's like the rolling joke.
that's who we are.
Yeah. Okay.
So other than the trust and the rapport, I really like that it had like a checklist for virtual meetings. Like, I thought it was kind of cool to outline everything so nobody gets off task, or, you know, what should we do before a meeting? What should we do during a meeting? And after the meeting. Mm-hmm. So I think we pretty much cover that in the team charter. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was nice that the textbook mentioned something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Another great point on my end I found was how the text talked about email being being an equalizer, where when you're having a discussion across email, that the secretary and the CEO are kind of the same, because you're not sitting there staring at the CEO or staring at the secretary. So everybody, I guess people feel a little bit more comfortable in their responses, since they're not sitting there and they don't feel that they're tied to that certain role as they would in a meeting. Oh, and the boundary objectives, how they were discussing companies who create shared vocabulary. So distant employees all, kind of feel like they're talking the same lingo.
That makes sense. I think each team will develop their own little way of doing things and how they speak and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section under mine, enhancing the effectiveness of virtual teams, and then it just like lists the checklist you guys were talking about earlier. Mind you, I just found this, so.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
One of the things that I noticed James does a lot is summarize often and confirm understanding, like throughout the meetings, just, make sure that what you're hearing is what the other person is trying to get across.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I can also understand when they talk about issues in virtual teams, when you have some members of the team who feel distant from the team, as far as participation, I think that's another great instance where that virtual water cooler comes into play. So you can try to bring in although somebody may have not contributed in a meeting, maybe in that water cooler talk, you can get them to open up and they can get more involved in the team as the virtual team progresses.
Right. Good point. So kind of like the discussion board would be our water cooler almost.
Yeah, pretty much. Email. Oh, what about the emails during vacation? You guys have a section where I thought there was a company that you can't get emails during vacation. I know I try not to check emails during vacation, but then you just always feel like, well, if I don't check them now, I'm going to be behind when I get back, and it's just going to be more work.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so hard.
It is. It is.
Nice thing about working retail, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. It's nice just to be able to unplug and walk away.
I wish I could just do that.
I know.
Well,
Unfortunately, I am a slave to my phone.
Yeah.
My store has a group chat between management, and if there's like any problems or anything that comes up while everyone else isn't there, we'll send a quick message. But if I'm not at work, I just silence it because time worked is time paid.
Yeah.
Yep. That is true.
Gotta be able to draw that.
I just wish I could get overtime.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice.
We're not allowed.
Paid by the day.
Right. No, but stuff happens sometimes. All right, guys. Anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't cover, or throw anything out there?
I think we're
random.
Good. Yeah, actually, on page 309, under information technology and social behavior, there's actually a portion in there talking about reduced status differences, or how the weak get strong effect. Now, I know everybody has had to have heard the term Facebook warrior.
Facebook warrior?
Well, I'm sorry, what?
Yes, or the keyboard warrior.
No. Well, I'm not on Facebook like that, so I don't
know.
Miss that.
Is my age showing right now?
A little bit.
Eden, you know, don't you?
I know.
basically, two opposing parties or people that, in a face-to-face encounter don't say much, don't do much, don't really do anything. They're the weak person, the weak one. But then when they're sitting behind that screen and that keyboard's in front of them, and they are a master of all sorts of combat, and they can, they become the strong one. Then,
Oh,
and that's basically what that's talking about, is how the roles reverse, going from being in person to being virtual.
Right. So absolutely. I mean, you
kind of like
don't
that
have to
wall thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to face those repercussions that you would in person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, good point. Facebook warrior.
Well, I learned something new today.
Right?
There we go.
That's my takeaway.
And that's all
Good
Belinda's
stuff,
going to have on her mind at the next meeting.
Alrighty. So, did we lock in a specific time for the 17th for Tuesday for the next meeting?
Was it like 2:30?
Yeah, 2:30
Yeah.
Arizona time.
Yep.
Okay.
And then so that'll still work for me. So I'll host that one and send you guys a link.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll talk on Tuesday in this, but then James is gonna submit our charter assignment on Sunday. Yeah?
Yeah, Sunday. Any changes, just try to have them by 12 noon. And of course, I'll give it some grace period, but I'll try to I'll send you guys a text message when I actually submit it through.
Okay. Cool.
I went ahead and changed everything that we worked in there today to red, so that once Allie gets a chance to look over it, she can see what was added.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to copy you guys on the email when I contact Dr. Shanley about that recording, so you guys can see that.
Okay.
And then I'm going to upload
Sounds
these.
good.
I'll upload these to YouTube.
Good.
Sounds
Deal.
good. All right. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
week.
you, everybody.
Bye.
See y'all.